And then what's more interesting, proud boy Sang-yeon standing in the middle of the staircase with a stone basketball in hand, just so Benifan would notice him. Or Sang-yeon making an excuse that his father accidentally dropped him off at the junior school, just so Benifan would look at him. Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world, and finally finished the first frosting. I have so much to say, but really watching Sang-yeon trying to stage his meeting with Benifan was probably the highlight of the series. I mean, I had doubts because there's no way that boy is standing in the middle of a staircase just dribbling his basketball, and I was right. He noticed that girl, ran up the stairs, took a random guy's basketball and started dribbling in the middle of the staircase, just on an off chance that Benifan would look at him. And she did. She did look at him. She paid off. But she assumed he was a senior and she asked him for directions, which he obviously gave her. And then he ran after her because he's not his senior. He's her classmate. And then when his teacher asked, like, what's your excuse for arriving late since you haven't come together? He's like, my father accidentally dropped me off to the primary school. That's Sang-yeon. Proud boy Sang-yeon, who was untouchable. And that's not me, that's his sister Sang-ji saying how Sang-yeon was a part of the family, but at the same time he was a little unapproachable, like he was in his own world. And watching this boy take a mick out of himself just so Benifan would notice him was honestly an experience to watch. And I felt so vindicated, but I also loved it so much because this is Sang-yeon in a way. This is the person that he is. And when you realise that, like, the first time she actually noticed him, he staged the meeting, and then when she wasted his bar overtime, his gastro bar overtime, the first time that she visited him, he staged that meeting too, because he deliberately approached her to the bathroom. He stood outside and waited for her to come out. And every time that she's noticed him, every time that she's seen, oh, there's Sang-yeon, it's been deliberate on his part. So that boy really did insert himself into Benifan's life and just made it a point to be there for her, in front of her, so that she'd notice him and eventually fall in love with him. And that's pretty much Sang-yeon summed up in the first frost. But apart from Sang-yeon and his lover boy tendencies, we also have Benifan, who is, again, even though she didn't approach Sang-yeon with romantic intentions at first, she really did find solace in him. And in all of her journey, as a student, as an adult, the only one person that she trusted, the only one person that didn't let her down, the only one person who was there for her, the only one person who really kept his promises was Sang-yeon. And she acknowledges it. And to her, that is the one person that she can trust with her life. That is the one person that she wants there for her every single time she chooses him. And even though there's awkwardness in the beginning, there's ice to break because she feels guilty, but there's also a point where she just lets herself go. She slowly starts to open up to him. And even though her life is in shambles, just that one person being there for her makes it all right. And I really like that throughout the series we see Benifan rediscover Sang-yeon and his love for her, because to her, the connection was severed when she left for Yuhan University. But that wasn't the end for Sang-yeon. He still, in his own way, tried to be there for her because he made a promise to her, and he's a stubborn man who wants to keep his word, come hell or high water. And he did that. He visited her university unknown to her, purchased all of her newspapers, collected her bylines, occasionally camped out in the lobby of her office, which was a little bit stalkerish, but he didn't approach her, and it wasn't with any malicious intent, so I will let it slide. And just was there for her when she was walking miserably down the streets of Yeha, and even ended up giving her a free strawberry cake, which was really what she needed because she was having a bad day. And after all the years of hearing that, you're not enough, after all the years of having her self-worth being torn down by the people around her, people who were supposed to protect her, she just felt like she wasn't even worthy of that strawberry cake and just walked away because she needed that. But to her, that was a greed that she didn't deserve. But Sang-yeon made it a point to send that cake to her, obviously disguised as a free promotion, and just helped her lift her spirit a little bit. And I really liked that when Benifan quit, the only thing that she said was, there's nothing left for me over here. I'm alone. I want to go back to Nanwoo. I want to go back to my home. And that place really did become her home. And that is also the place where, again, there's Sang-yeon, but there's also her best friend, Jong Si-chao. And that girl was so good. And I really like that girl because for once, the cheerful best friend isn't just a cheerful best friend. She has a story. She has a character. she has a background. Jung Si Chao's family was honestly the highlight for me because they're so big, like there's so many people living in that small quarters. They're a nice family who stays together. And you also see sides of Jung Si Chao and her reasoning, because it's not like she can't move out. Well, she doesn't want to move out because she wants to be there for her mother, who's struggling alone in a house so big with so many people. And she wants to be there for her mother as long as she can. And her parents have been through so much, and she feels like they deserve it. And let me tell you, I wasn't expecting that, because in a rom-com, the best friend essentially is a background character set up there to either elevate the female lead, create situations where the female lead and the male lead get together, which again was in episode 1 when Jung Si Chao sort of took Wenny Fan to overtime and sort of created the meeting between them. But she wasn't there as an add-on. She wasn't there as a standard side character. She had her own personality. She was working hard for herself. She was an independent, self-made woman, and throughout the series, there's no point where we see her completely leave her job or just be there for Wenny Fan unconditionally. No, she has responsibilities. She's a grown adult, and she has her own thought process. She has her own family, and she also breaks down, which again we saw when Soo Ha-eun approached Xiang Lang on how to woo Jung Si Chao, and he told her, like, the one time I really saw her break down was when Wenny Fan left so abruptly, and he was about to leave for his university in the US, and that was where she really broke down, because she felt like she's an add-on in the group. Like, she's not somebody who's important enough like Wenny Fan, and Xiang Lang really didn't notice her. Or when Xiang Lang cleared up the air about how the bracelets wasn't meant for her but for Wenny Fan, which was a really shitty thing to do, because on one hand you're essentially telling your friend that she's been living in a delusion of grandeur all these years, and then on the same time confessing to the other friend. When I say I was frustrated seeing that, but anyways, that point highlighted that she's a human being. She has a family, and her family is there for Wenny Fan, to have that safe shelter, to have that familiar feeling of a family, because they're loud, they're bustling, they're in each other's spaces, there's barely any room for anybody, but they make space, they adjust, they let people in. And that's the essence of family that Wenny Fan was looking for. That's the essence of family that essentially Soo Ha-eun was looking for as well. And let me be honest, I'm not really sold on Soo Ha-eun and his family's drama, because to me, Jung Si Chao's family deserved much more attention, because they had that plot. Her parents almost divorced all those years ago, where Jung Si Chao almost suffered an emotional breakdown, where her father casually took her daughter's suitor on a bridge, and he told her, is it beautiful down there? Yeah, one day I almost jumped from here, and that took me aback, but also that highlighted the fact that the real people, they had real world problems, and they dealt with it. But they came to this point with their problems, and they're still carrying the burden of it on their backs, because no person can let go of their issues one night. It's something that we have to live with. But then you have people around them who love you, who appreciate you, and they help you slowly but surely get over things. And to me, that was the highlight. I don't know why they kept circling back to Soo Ha-eun's family when it was a little bit of a drag. Like, don't get me wrong, the grandparent story was beautiful and touching. I'm not saying that. It's just, it's too boring, because there's nothing happening over there. They're circling over the same point again and again and again. And it just felt quite repetitive. And also inserted for the sake of Soo Ha-eun to fall for Jung Si Chao, because, deceptively taking her as his girlfriend under another name, and then sort of seeing her charm his grandparents, and so becoming a fixture in his grandparents' lives. Of course he's going to fall for her, like, of course that's going to happen, but yeah, that story felt a little forced. And honestly, I really felt like Soo Ha-eun only fell for Jung Si Chao because he liked the feeling of having somebody there for him unconditionally, and a feeling of trust and calmness, and also a sense of security, which he really craved, because he lost his parents when he was really young, and he partially believed it to be his fault. He spent his entire life being raised by his grandparents, and they obviously had their own issues. And then he bounced from girlfriend to girlfriend and sort of made a playboy image for himself. But he was one of those golden boys looking for true love, and he found it in Jung Si Chao, and slowly fell in love with him. And I really liked him sitting there on the dinner table in Jung Si Chao's home with so many people around him, and he's super awkward at first, but he slowly assimilates to it, because it's the family that he's been looking for, and he's finally found it. And really like that, the first time they confessed to each other, they kissed and then they're sitting on the opposite ends. Because it's really awkward. Because they're not really expecting it. And really like that when Jung Si Chao rejected him, Su Haon didn't take it on his ego, like, why did you do that? He went and contacted her friend Xiang Lang and sat down with him and tried to figure out, like, what is the problem? Why is she behaving like that? Is there something wrong? I want to know more about her. I want to be there for her. I want to understand her. And that did earn some brownie points. So, Jayo for Su Haon and Jung Si Chao. Because her and Many Fan really do deserve the world. And I hope that they get everything that they're looking for. But I also liked that everything had a payoff. You weren't left hanging and wondering when this happened, why is this happening? Because even the little things like Jung Si Chao coming to Wendy Fan's room and noticing a blank space had a payoff in her bringing a painting for her. Like, you know what? I will help you decorate your room. I will be there for you. How Sangyeon, after he noticed Wendy Fan sleepwalking at night, bought these lights and placed them around the house, and eventually led to the conversation of Wendy Fan explaining to Sangyeon how sleepwalking actually works, and that the lights don't really do much for her, but she appreciates him baby-proofing the house. And this led to Sangyeon actually taking down the lights, because now he understands that she doesn't really react to light. And then you have Wendy Fan falling up at the hospital about her sleepwalking habits, and actually talking to a doctor about it. And I was so happy when I saw it, because I think I mentioned in my first review that I would really like to see Wendy Fan going to a hospital and getting an actual diagnosis done, and she does it. She goes and gets professional help. And I can't emphasize the amount of times when things like sleepwalking has been used as a plot device and then forgotten about completely, because it's an actual thing. And it can actually be harmful. It's not a good thing. People don't just randomly start sleepwalking. There's usually a reason behind it, and you need to treat it. Because even though you might not stop sleepwalking in your lifetime, at least you'll feel lighter from the inside. At least you let go of the burdens of your heart. And Wendy Fan does that. And that's so good to watch, honestly. And then there's obviously Wendy Fan finding out on her own how Sangyeon was all those years without her. So I was really expecting it to be one of those epilogue scenes, but they gave it importance, like it obviously should have. And seeing Wendy Fan pick up the box gave me flutters, because I was genuinely wondering, will she open it? Or will he come and snatch it out of her hands? And she'd be like, no, what's in there? But Sangyeon just waited for her. He didn't say anything. When he was right in the kitchen and Wendy Fan was in his room, she was emptying a box to take it to her room because they were shifting. And she slowly opens the lid, and I'm feeling more nervous than Sangyeon, because I'm like, what's going to happen? And Wendy Fan slowly realizing, one ticket at a time, how Sangyeon has been living all these years, cherishing the memories, cherishing her memories, and keeping his promises the only way he could. It's cathartic. Because as a viewer, as a person who's followed their relationship for such a long time, it made me feel happy and hopeful and vindicated. There's no secret loverboy moves. There's no third party telling Wendy Fan about how Sangyeon was a loverboy, or how Sangyeon was there for her, or how Sangyeon did this, how Sangyeon did that. No. Sangyeon as a person tried to move on from Wendy Fan. Sangyeon as a person was devastated, but he's a prideful man, and he has a tendency to keep things to himself. So it is within his character, it is within him to not share his sorrows with the world. The only time when he ever really let it loose was when he drank like 10 bottles of alcohol. And that's when he was triggered by his friends' incoherent ramblings about how was he just a backup. Because a backup line really touched a sore nerve in him. And that sort of made him ramble incoherently, but he was not the one to share his sorrows with his friends or tell his friends what is going on in his life. So seeing Wendy Fan understand him being there for her on her own, without any person telling her, without any person interfering in it, was honestly godsend, and something so refreshing, because usually his dramas don't go this smoothly, especially not in major reveals. And watching her smile and then break down, because she's realizing the amount of time they could have had, and regretting her decision even more so than ever of leaving him behind and going to Yeeha. It was so sad, and Jang Voonan played it so beautifully, and biting things, just quietly smiling and just crying, because it's done. You can't turn back time. You can't go back. The only thing you can do is move forward. And they did to an extent move forward in their life. But this time they're going to do it together and stepping one step closer to where they want to be. And Wen Yifan telling him, you know what, if next year the summer is longer, just propose to me. Because if you'd imagine, like a year ago, they wouldn't be talking about this. Wen Yifan would be freaked out as heck at Sangyan even mentioning dating, because to her, she's not worth it. But to him, she's everything. And when I say I really like the resilience of Wen Yifan's character, I meant it, because Wen Yifan always stood up for herself, to her mother, her father's family. She never backed down. Even when things went from bad to worse, she stood by her beliefs, because usually you see female leads just backing down and forgiving the mother figure. Family members usually barely suffer any consequences, but over here, Wen Yifan is decisive. And it's just beautiful to see Wen Yifan standing up for herself, especially when, you have the little moments when Sangyan was walking towards her in the car and, she sees her stepsister talk to him and he tells her, she's asking if you'd like to visit the house and she nods yes, but then she's like, I won't. Because she really doesn't want to go back to the house. And her mother really, really, really pisses me off, because to her, she's the only one person who suffered. She's the only one person who tried to do right by her daughter, but then, it didn't work out because she wanted the best for herself and not for her daughter. She was looking out for herself, but not for her daughter. But then she expects her daughter to be there for her. And that is really highlighted when she visits her on her birthday, forcibly makes a scene in front of her colleagues, calls her out, forces her hand essentially and calls her out to this cafe, and just sort of tried to get rid of her guilt by apologizing half-heartedly when it's revealed that the pedophilic uncle was an actual murderer and her aunt helped him hide an entire body. Like, that is one big criminal. And her mother, at the time of the incident, brushed it off and said, it must have been a misunderstanding. Your uncle is actually a good guy. And now she's feeling the weight of her words, so she wants to apologize for it. And to do that, instead of trying to slowly mend her ways with her daughter, trying to slowly rebuild a relationship, she forces her daughter's hand and taking her out to a restaurant in full public, sitting her down and sort of guilt-tripping her into accepting her back. Why? Because A, she found out that the uncle obviously was a murderer, and because her current husband is cheating on her. And she wants someone to support her because, the stepdaughter will side with her father. And that is one of the reasons why the stepsister has been trying to contact Wen Yifan and spend some time with the mother, because if there's a breakup, the sister would feel a little bit guilty, but she won't side with the mother. She would obviously go with the father. And watching the mother trying to rebuild a relationship for her own benefit made Wen Yifan realize that, we've both been abandoned. We're both sort of the same, but that didn't break down her resolve. That didn't make her accept her mother. That really made her feel vindicated, and that made her feel even more determined to cut off her mother. And she really told her that, just imagine your daughter died that day. Just imagine you no longer have a daughter anymore. And she walks away. And even when she's on Sangyan's back and she's watching her mother dazedly just sort of zombie walking out of the cafe, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't approach it, because the entire time I was watching that scene, I literally crossed my fingers and just hoped that Wen Yifan, please don't melt, please don't go. And she didn't, and I'm so proud of her. I really am, because she really stood up for herself where it was required, and she understood that it's not her fault. It's not her that needs to build a relationship. It was her mother, and her mother failed. And watching that flashback of her mother announcing that she was pregnant, it just made me glad that Wen Yifan had Sangyan. Really glad that Sangyan never let go. Because Wen Yifan and Sangyan really did deserve each other. And Wen Yifan deserves that love. The love that she would get from Sangyan, his family, her friends, and, her colleagues really. Because for once, life did smile upon Wen Yifan. And she did give her the things that she missed out on as a child or even as a young adult. And then there's also Sangyan's family, because I really liked Sangji and Wen Yifan's bonding and watching them sort of gossip about Sangyan, and Sangji telling Wen Yifan exactly how he was all those years when she left him, telling her how she actually changed her brother for the better, because this person had always been confident, had always been self-assured, because that's his upbringing, that's the kind of lifestyle that he's had. And growing up as a privileged kid, this is probably the first time he's been rejected, and that too so brutally, because he worked his ass off. He did everything he could, and then at the end, all he got was rejection. And to him, that was devastating, because he didn't know where he went wrong. And once that happened, Sangyan literally just crashed. wasn't eating, wasn't doing anything, just sitting in his room, semi-catatonic. And then Sangji sort of restarted him, and that made the siblings grow closer and made him become more of an approachable brother, because Sangyan was always there for her. But there's always this divide between the family and Sangyan, because his personality is more of an arrogantly introverted character. I don't know how to describe it. But there does happen to be a character who is not emotionally available all the time, even though they're there with you, but they're still unapproachable to an extent. But after suffering that loss, after losing Renifan, Sangyan realized that, life is not all about winning. There are times when you lose, when people let you go, and you can't really do anything about it. You just have to soldier on. You have to move on with your life. But that sort of gave him a renewed determination towards doing something for himself, making a life for himself. And then, once he got back to being himself sort of to an extent, and then, obviously went to Nanwu, that sort of brought him back the yearning for Renifan, and just sort of going there to just see her, like how she's doing, checking in on her. It became an addiction, especially when he was chatting with her in the game, and that sort of tied in with Sangyan being Sangyan. And I really like that they followed up with the whole game thing, because last time I thought that, Sangyan sort of started playing the game because he played like crazy to reach the level 49, just so he could mentor Renifan. And I thought probably he started playing it, and that's why he became a master. But as it turns out, it was actually because Renifan, after a while, just stopped playing, and she told him, I'm not going to be playing for a while, and she left. So Sangyan sort of had his contact with her cut off. So for the next 2 years, he kept playing the game, just so on the off chance that she would pop up one day randomly and they'd be able to chat once again, even though she doesn't know who he is. He's a random person on the internet. Just for that one off chance that she would notice him, he kept playing that game for 2 years. And in my mind, I'm like, that's so Sangyan, because especially after I saw student Sangyan going out of his way to give Renifan to notice him, it made me realise that, even though his characteristics have matured, he's become this person who's gloomier, who's much more reserved, he's still the same person as he was when he was in high school. He's still got the same traits. And then one fine day, Renifan does come online, but it's a bad day for her, and essentially she's cleaning up her phone and she randomly found this game, and she just wanted to check in one last time before she leaves for good. That's what prompted Sangyan to sort of go to Yiha and check in on her, and turns out it's the day she quit. It's the day when she's walking out alone, all miserable. And you do realise that there's no random coincidence. There's no chance. There's no fate. Sangyan really did insert himself into Renifan's destiny, Renifan's path towards her fate, and just being like, you know what? I'm in this with you. We're doing this together. And it just made me feel like, where can I get my Sangyan? Do they make them somewhere? Can I pick him up somewhere, really? Because that is one dedicated person, and I would have really liked to see Renifan sort of reciprocated, but then they had to run away. Which brings me to the part where I get frustrated and I get absolutely pissed off, because they ruined her character and they made Sangyan into your typical lover boy who has no thoughts but the girl, which again technically is Sangyan, but this is too far. Because in the novel, and I did go back and read the novel because I saw the trailers and they had the whole where Renifan was all miserable because the paedophile uncle came back and he sort of wanted to take revenge on her, and she just kept blowing him off. So he went to Sangyan's bar one night where Renifan was there, and he sort of tried to manhandle her, and Sangyan obviously got pissed off. And then, he tried to pin a false case of food safety on Sangyan's bar via one of his friends. And that sort of made Renifan feel like she is making Sangyan miserable. She is bringing misfortune on him, essentially. And she does go to her mother's house where that guy and, her aunt's family is staying, and, confront him and be like, oh, come after me, not him. And then, she goes back home, she's all drenched. And we get one of the most heartbreaking moments of the series because, she's saying goodbye. And Sangyan in his bones feels that there's something wrong. There's something bad that's going to happen, but he can't shake off this feeling. But again, she's in front of him, she's there for him, and he's the one to let go. And then the next day he goes to Yiha, and the friends Jong Si Chao and Suhan sort of check in the house, and her stuff's gone. Renifan is not there, and Sangyan rushes back home, and he finds out that she's left for good. And it really, truly, absolutely pissed me off because that's not Wendy Fan. That is not the girl that we know. That's not the girl that we've been following for 24 odd episodes. And I was really wary when I saw the story of the girl that, Wendy Fan was covering, who sort of ran away from her mother and landed up in Hong Kong, where, her mother was trying to cash out on her daughter, but she was disguising it as an worry for her, and the daughter was essentially like, no, I didn't get kidnapped, I ran away from you and I didn't want to contact you ever again. And in the back of the mind, it was just like, I hope they don't do this with Wendy Fan. Or if they do it early on, because it doesn't make sense if Wendy Fan knows everything that Sang Yan has been through in her absence. She sat there at Chin Fei's wedding and heard about how Sang Yan literally drank 10 bottles of alcohol and just kept mumbling, am I a backup to you? Backup is fine, all night long, just because those are the parting words that she gave to him. After knowing everything that he's done for her, she left at the first signs of trouble. And to me, I don't want to say it, but to me that's such a fickle behavior. That is not Wendy Fan. Because in the novel, Sang Yan does find out about the paedophilic uncle manhandling Wendy Fan, and he doesn't find it out through Wendy Fan. He finds it out via Wendy Fan's colleague. And then, when he confronts her, he gets really angry because she's bottling things up inside once again. And since they're supposed to be in a relationship, since they're supposed to be together, she's not sharing. They're supposed to share each other's burdens. They're supposed to talk. And when she shuts him out once again, because again, to her, it's not worth it. She'll handle it. She doesn't want Sang Yan to see this ugly side of her family, of herself. And it's one of the reasons why she initially left. But Sang Yan feels like it's something that he's been kept out of, and she's treating him like an outsider, like she doesn't trust him. And that really hurt his feelings. And that's the first time that you see Sang Yan actually stand up for himself. And he leaves for Yi He without Wendy Fan because he's really angry, and very deservedly so. And that's when Wendy Fan makes a surprise trip and goes to Yi He to find him. And then that is where she confesses about how she suffered in her aunt's house and what actually happened with the paedophilic uncle. And that was much more deserved, because you have Wendy Fan, who on one hand feels like she's not good enough for Sang Yan, who feels like she's a burden on him, that Sang Yan could do so much better. She'll only bog him down, but she still stays there with him, because in her mind, if he's choosing me, if he's choosing to be there for me, if he's choosing to be there for us, then the least I could do is hold his hand and stand with him. And despite everything, all the shit that her father's family pulls, she stands there with him. And to the point where she runs after him, all the way to Yi He, a place that she'd rather forget, a place she'd rather never step foot in. And she confronts him, and of her own will talks about everything that happened with her. And that is the bond between the both of them that they've built over such a long time. That is an actual relationship that is born out of love and understanding and caring for your partner. Running away just completely disregards everything that they've built up. Because Wendy Fan running away didn't matter, because the uncle can still target Sang Yan. Her not being there doesn't dissolve the grudge that the uncle held against Sang Yan, because he's still there in Nanwu. He can still harm him. Why would he stop because Wendy Fan's no longer there? Just thinking about it makes me so mad. And then, there's this whole, he's looking for her for 6 months. He's crazily trying to reach her. And, so Zhong Zichao and Su Han are like putting all the connections. They're taking trips to Hong Kong in search of Wendy Fan. And, she's living in such pathetic conditions. And for 2 episodes, this went on. And then it's all good. It's all right. Why even do this if it's not going to contribute to the plot and just ruin it? Because at no point is Sang Yan anxious about Wendy Fan packing up and leaving one day, like she did twice now. He's just okay, since, she's told him about everything that she went through and everything's fine now. How does that make sense? How does that not give Sang Yan daily anxiety? How does that not make him cling more towards her? Or how does that make him not break off with Wendy Fan the night that he found her and just get a clean break because he's tired? Mentally, he's breaking down because he doesn't know the next time she'll pack up and leave. And I understand it's rom-com. It's not something that you're supposed to think too much of, because, these things are tropes that usually play out in a rom-com drama. But you had a good story right there. And instead of using that, you swapped it for this bull runaway plot, which really, really pissed me off. But as brief as it may have been, we did see Wendy Fan live out her dreams. and sort of not leave behind any regret in this life. And then, you know, she obviously went back to Nanbu and she got her job back and everything fell back to normal. And she even performed in Officer's Gala, which I was really looking forward to because that was the one scene that I really wanted to see, and it happened. Sangyeon and his obsession for Wenifan in a pretty little dress was really nice to watch, to say the least, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. And Sangyeon really had all of his senses trained on Wenifan because he's always recognized the uncle as a parasite, and he was always on alert around him. You know, even when the uncle visited the restaurant after Wenifan sort of ran away, he beat him up pretty good. And then after hearing about what Wenifan actually went through, he saw him loitering around the building, and Ivan Bazak got stabbed, but then got the uncle sort of restrained and finally arrested. But you know, that one moment when Sangyeon's phone was picked up by somebody else and she found, you know, that guy's been stabbed and he's in a hospital, and finding that out was probably her nightmares coming true, because that is the one reason why she wanted to leave Sangyeon out of it, why she was staying away from him. And at the end of the day, her world, her nightmares, the ugliness of it still tainted him, still reached out to him, still managed to harm him. And watching Wenifan be angry at Sangyeon in the cab and then immediately going soft when, you know, he flinches when she tries to pull her hand back, I have no words. It's more of a macho thing usually, where the hero goes after the villain and, you know, sort of hunts him down and be like, oh, how dare you touch my girl. But over here, Sangyeon had an actual legitimate excuse, because this guy was a killer, because this guy was an actual problem for Wenifan, and this guy has a history of trying to abuse her. And this guy is an active threat to Wenifan. So Sangyeon putting his life on the line just to ensure that Wenifan doesn't get hurt, that this guy is caught. And Wenifan telling him, you know what, it doesn't matter to me if he's caught or not. It matters to me if you're hurt or not, because my priority is you. And that was probably the one time when Sangyeon's fear were put to rest, that I am finally a priority in her life. I am finally somebody that she would willingly stay with, that she won't run away, that she's finally thinking of a life with me, she's finally being there for me. And then, you know, she obviously chauffeurs him to and fro from work. She gives him a sponge bath. I really wish they had shown us Sangyeon's injury being discovered by his family, and, you know, them freaking out and, you know, them scolding him, you know, just being angry at him that, you know, you didn't tell us anything. How did this happen? And then Wenifan is really guilty, but Sangyeon obviously doesn't say anything, like why it happened. But we did get a scene of Sangji and Wenifan bonding and sort of talking it out about how Wenifan changed him. So I'll take it. I'll take it, honestly. Because Sangyeon picking up Wenifan after he got his stitches removed was already superhuman of him, so it wouldn't have made sense for him to still have stitches while he's at his family's for dinner, so I'll take it. And the confession, it's the perfect thing, like Sangyeon standing at the top of the staircase, shouting Wen Shuangjang in front of everybody, Sangyeon confessing to Wenifan. It was perfect. And while I'm a little sad that we didn't get to see the wedding, we didn't get to see the family bonding time with, you know, the family getting together for the engagement. The proposal was just perfect, really. Because Sangyeon mumbling, you know, I gave you this thing, how do I not know how to operate it? Because it's no longer your Sangyeon, just like your heart. It's Wenifan's now. And their friends just being there for them. The awkwardness of that proposal, because no matter how much you plan out, no matter how much you put frills into things, the picture perfect thing is just a myth. Proposals can be awkward, but the thing is, the person in front of you loves you enough to look at you fumble through the things that are in your hand and still smile through tears and just be like, take your time, I'll be right there with you. And then I watched the BTS of that scene, and that wedding should have been perfect. That wedding should have been there. I really wanted that wedding. It was a really satisfying conclusion to a really satisfying story, because despite all the ups and downs, despite the little misgivings, I did really enjoy the story. I did really enjoy the journey that Sangyeon and Wenifan took me on. And it just hits home because they truly are made for each other. And, you know, as Sangyeon said to Wenifan, your father didn't send me to you. I volunteered, just like I always have and just like I always will. And I will always be glad to Bai Jingting and Jang Ronan for taking on these stories, because they're perfect, absolutely perfect. And nobody could have done this better than them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them in a new drama. I wouldn't mind getting some side stories, because they did do pretty well on the viewing chart. So, Yoku, are you listening to me? Please, 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 please give us some side stories. I really appreciate it, even though they probably won't do it because Bai Jingting already has a new project and Jang Ronan is also in a new project that she's working on, and they're both busy. So, Yoku, please give me those side stories, I beg you. Or just give me Bai Jingting and Jang Ronan in a new drama. That I'd consider as even if you do that, please. And thank you. And that sort of, begging Yoku sort of concludes my final review of The First Frost, Nanhong. So if you were looking towards something that checks all the right boxes of rom-com, but with a side of all the heavy stuff, First Frost is the perfect show for you. And I absolutely recommend you watch it at least once, because it is a good drama despite the few misgivings that I've had. It really deserves all the attention that it's getting. So I hope you guys have a good time watching Nanhong. And I will probably make a final review for The Best Thing. I just need to catch up on the last 6 episodes, I believe. And then I'll start catching up on my Korean dramas as well. So let's see. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching The First Frost as much as I did. And I would love to hear from you guys. You can reach out to me on Instagram, on Twitter. My handle is talk_about drama. Until then, I hope you guys have a good week. Ciao.